We now welcome Group 1 customers and U.S. military members with active military ID to board Flight 2301 to Phoenix, Group 1.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome everyone. So let me show you some highlights of this flight with a maintenance delay, and then we'll get to the details.
Going to take here to fix the airplane, but it's not serious, so they're just trying to fix it because it has to go to Hawaii after it gets to Phoenix, so they'd rather fix it here in Philadelphia. So I thank you for your patience. I'll try to keep you updated. Thank you. Fully resolved. We're working through it with maintenance. It's strictly a paperwork issue at this point. It shouldn't take but another 15 minutes at the most to get this situation resolved. In accordance with DOT and American Airlines policy, I would like to offer you the opportunity to deplane and discontinue the flight at this time. If you choose to deplane, please take all of your personal belongings with you, as you may not be able to reboard. I'll provide you with another status update in about 30 minutes or sooner if any information changes. Thanks you for your patience.
Alright, so as you can see, we had a maintenance delay out of Philly. Now this resulted in people running to their gate after we landed. So stay with me to see if my bag and I ended up making our flight. So I made sure that I found a checkpoint with pre-check. So it's true that it's not always the fastest way through security, but I enjoy keeping my shoes on, electronics in the bag, and going through security is much faster. So I double checked the gate, and then I headed to the food court in Philadelphia. Now you might have seen this time on the screen here. It's just after 5 a.m. so it's quite early. So not so many places were open for breakfast, but Chick-fil-A was, so that's cool. I enjoy going to Chick-fil-A, so I grabbed something there. And then after I finished, I did some walking around the terminal, because this was going to be almost a 5-hour flight, and then I headed to the gate. So, when I got to the gate, I was looking around, looked out the window, saw the plane was on the gate. It must have arrived from the previous evening. It's an Airbus A321, which I do enjoy flying on. So at this point, it was about a half hour prior to boarding, so I was just hanging out in the boarding area. Now, as you're waiting here, you can see the crew starts coming up and they start boarding, getting on board, doing their pre-flight checks or whatever they need to do.
Today we have a completely full flight. Every seat is occupied. We are checking bags here at the gate prior to departure. Any customer is welcome to come forward at this time to check your carry-on bag to your final destination at no charge. We'd like to thank you for choosing to fly American, and we will begin board Flight 2301 to Phoenix in about 10 minutes.
I'd like to welcome our concierge key member to pre-board now or anytime during the boarding process. Concierge key.
We now welcome Group 1 customers and U.S. military members with active military ID to board Flight 2301 to Phoenix, Group 1.
Yeah, so for sure one of the perks of first class is boarding Group 1. So the first class seat is more comfy and roomy than the seats in the boarding area. It's surprising how quick the jet bridge actually backs up. I mean, very few people boarded the plane in front of me, and there's always a queue at the plane there ready to board, so that's interesting. But the first class seats are pretty decent. They're roomy, both in seat width and with leg room. So I'm 6'4", pretty tall guy, and there were still several inches of room in front of my knees between me and the seat in front of me. So that's great. As first aboard, of course, you have the longest to wait until the flight gets going, but it seems like, the rest of the boarding goes pretty quick. So the first thing everyone does when they sit down is whip out their phone to kill some time, so I did the same.
Get away here in just a few minutes, and they're still boarding your bags in the aft cargo bins, so as soon as that's done, we'll be able to get going, and also when everybody's seated. Flight time is 4 hours and 55 minutes. We got some pretty stiff headwinds on the way to Phoenix. We'll be at an altitude of 34,000 feet. Once we get airborne, it should be a smooth flight. I'll be able to going to take here to fix the airplane, but it's not serious, so they're just trying to fix it because it has to go to Hawaii after it gets to Phoenix, so they'd rather fix it here in Philadelphia. So I thank you for your patience. I'll try to keep you updated. Thank you.
Okay, so if you're on a delay, being in first is better than being in economy, that's for sure. So during this delay, they came around with the drink service, so that helps pass the time, and it helps keep your mind off the delay and the fact that you might miss your connection. So the choices were water and orange juice, but I would think they probably would have grabbed me, something else if I would have wanted it. Now, one other thing here, because you are so close to the front, you hear all the conversations between the pilots and the maintenance and the flight attendants. So the problem was, from overhearing, was that the sinks in the back lav weren't working. And they were trying to fix them, and at the same time they're trying to get hand sanitizer, or maybe they just block off the lav. So you're hearing this whole conversation. And then, also there's kind of a whole mess. The ground crew brought some hand sanitizer in case the sinks didn't work in the back. The captain kept saying that would never be enough, it would send them back for more. Then there were paperwork issues. They kept asking to see maintenance again. Then the maintenance took the logbook and they didn't bring it back, so we waited for that. And the whole thing just seemed like a completely uncoordinated string of events.
Ladies and gentlemen from the flight deck, they are just finishing up the paperwork on the airplane, and so as soon as they're done with that, we'll be able to leave. We thank you very much for your patience. Fully resolved. We're working through it with maintenance. It's strictly a paperwork issue at this point. It shouldn't take but another 15 minutes at the most to get this situation resolved. In accordance with DOT and American Airlines policy, I would like to offer you the opportunity to deplane and discontinue the flight at this time. If you choose to deplane, please take all of your personal belongings with you, as you may not be able to reboard. I'll provide you with another status update in about 30 minutes or sooner if any information changes. Thanks you for your patience.
Must be stowed for taxi, takeoff, and landing. If you have a carry-on, place it all the way under the seat.
So this was one of the weirdest takeoffs that I've ever experienced. Every window shade in first class was down, so you couldn't look out. And it was weird accelerating and taking off without any visual references outside. Everyone had their eyes glued to their phone or the iPad. It was just a little bit weird. Too bad, because I do enjoy looking outside, especially on takeoff or landings. But that's the privilege you get sitting by the window and controlling the window shade. But so not long after takeoff, the in-flight service started. I always enjoy getting hot tea with cream and sugar on flights. Then for breakfast, there were two different options. I got the omelet, and I believe the other option was yogurt. The omelet was okay. You could see there was some fried potatoes and fruit that went along with it, and a bread basket with different breads. For dessert, there was a cinnamon roll, which was actually fairly decent. And then sometime after that, there was another beverage service, so I got some soda. So one thing that I do enjoy about flying first, especially on business trips, is that there's always enough room, to have your laptop out and to be doing some work. So that's kind of nice, because in the back, you don't have room for a laptop and typing. At least I don't with my size.
Knowing you'll beat 60,000 bonus miles. With this, you'll be able to be on your way to booking a work flight starting at 7,500 miles. Just a few minutes, we'll be preparing the cabin for arrival.
All right, so then we were landing and the flight was about over. So the flight attendants were great. They were busy the whole flight, with service to the passengers at first, providing food or beverage or cleaning up, checking to see how everyone was. Also, they were checking with each one to see if they had connections and if there's anything they could do to help. So you can access American Airlines website for free online in flight. So I was checking our arrival gate and then, the departing gate on my next flight. Our arrival gate changed a few times. At one point, it was right next to the departure gate. So that was pretty cool. Then I had some hope, but then hope was lost when our gate was updated to a completely different terminal. But then hope was restored when my departing flight posted a 15-minute delay. So it's quite the roller coaster of emotions here on the flight.
Please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the seatbelt sign is turned off, and keep the aisles clear of all carry-on items. Take a moment to check your seat back pocket for any personal items, like tablets and cell phones. When you open the overhead compartment, be careful. as items may have moved in flight. And thank you for choosing American Airlines.
Gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you to Phoenix. So Lead Flight Attendant Mary Jo talking here. I'm going to ask a big favor for all the local people, with Phoenix being your final destination. We still have a good chance for some of our connecting passengers to make their 11 o'clock connections. So if you haven't already talked to your neighbor for the last 5 hours and found out that they may have a connecting flight, if you don't mind seeing if anybody in your row has a connecting flight that's within the next hour, if you would allow them into the aisle first. I'm a 35-year veteran. This is all I can offer to get the connections off the airplane, passengers with connections off the airplane first. So I greatly appreciate it. And for my Phoenix passengers, it'll be a little bit for them to get your bags off the airplane. So if you can just remain seated and allow our connecting passengers into the aisle. Now remember, we have 37 rows on this Airbus 321, so once I get a heads up of who's the last connecting passenger off the aircraft, I'll give you a heads up that it's time. And I thank you so much. I'm giving it a best shot due to our tardiness out of Philadelphia. Once again, if you have a connecting flight, please double check the monitors inside the airport terminal, and definitely on your electronic device, go to aa.com. If you're walking up, you gotta stay seated. This is for your safety. That seatbelt sign is not off yet.
All right, so then we're off to the races. So I ran to the other terminal with hope. Being in first, it does give you a little bit of a head start. But then, my hope was dashed when I saw that the flight was closed. So at that point, I looked out the window, saw the jet bridge was pulled off the aircraft. So I missed it for sure. That was a disappointing feeling. But thanks for joining me today. I hope to see you next time.